Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a massive, multi-layered debate tearing through the tech world right now: AI regulation and open source models. Look, we all know this tech is moving at light speed, and lawmakers are scrambling to keep up. But the conversations happening right now behind closed boardroom doors, they aren't just about what AI can actually do anymore. It's about who gets to control it.
Before we get into the technical weeds here, we really have to ask ourselves a foundational question. Are these super loud calls for strict AI rules actually about protecting us from harm? Or is there a massive corporate strategy at play? It's this fascinating tug-of-war between genuine safety and sheer market dominance.
So here is our game plan for today. We'll start with the AI regulation push, dive into whether it's about safety or building a regulatory moat, and look at open versus closed ecosystems. Then, we'll shift gears into private AI for enterprise security, the risks of open source, and finally, where this all lands with a hybrid AI future.
All right, Section 1, the AI regulation push and why companies are actually begging for rules.
Let's take a look at the surface arguments first, because to be completely fair, they are totally valid. Big AI companies are genuinely stressed about how their models might be weaponized. We're talking bad actors automating malware, scaling up these crazy convincing phishing campaigns, or even generating biological risks. Add in the absolute explosion of deepfake fraud and the legal nightmare of copyright infringement, and yeah, if you're dropping billions to train a model, you want predictable rules. You want to know exactly what safety testing is required, and honestly, who gets sued when things inevitably go sideways. It's just basic risk management.
But let's move to Section 2, safety or regulatory moat, the hidden motive. Okay, if we peel back the layers on all those safety concerns, we hit the real plot twist of this explainer: market control. Look, training frontier AI takes billions of dollars, massive server farms, and specialized chips. Critics are pointing out that some of the loudest voices begging for regulation might actually be trying to build what we call a regulatory moat. Basically, they use the astronomically high costs of government compliance to build a fortress around their established businesses. It literally makes it impossible for leaner, scrappier startups to compete. Imagine a medieval castle, but instead of water and crocodiles in the moat, it's just filled with million-dollar compliance fees and endless legal red tape.
So how does this moat actually work in the real world? Well, policies that sound amazing for public safety, like mandatory safety audits or strict government licensing, actually have a massive secondary effect. They heavily favor the giant tech companies who already have armies of lawyers to handle the paperwork. Take compute reporting requirements, for example. If you force every AI lab to exhaustively document their compute usage, you're making scaling so much harder for a new competitor. It's wild when you realize how regulation can totally act as a double-edged sword. Which brings us to Section 3, open versus closed ecosystems, and the two paths forward. This whole tension really boils down to the ultimate battle in AI today: who controls the distribution? We're looking at a pretty strict divide. On one side, you've got the closed model approach. Companies keep the model weights entirely locked down, you only get access through an API, and they watch every move you make. It's great for governance, safety filters, and, let's be real, controlling the revenue stream. But on the flip side, we have the open source approach. Model weights are public, anyone can download them, modify them, go crazy. This is driving incredible, rapid innovation at universities and startups, making sure AI power isn't just hoarded by a few mega corporations. The catch? Bad actors can just strip away the safety controls, and there's absolutely no central kill switch to shut it down. All right, let's look at Section 4, private AI for enterprise security. Let's talk corporate reality. So why is open source AI so desperately needed in the real world? Think about it from an enterprise perspective. If a massive bank or hospital uses a public AI SaaS tool, their data control is super limited because that sensitive data literally has to leave their building. But if they grab an open source model and run it totally in-house as a private AI, everything changes. For these big organizations, running private open source AI means their data never leaves their air-gapped networks. Those are systems completely physically cut off from the internet. They get total control, massive customization, and they breeze through strict compliance standards because every piece of data stays entirely under their own roof. This completely flips the script for cybersecurity. Picture an AI-powered security operations center. Normally, you have a human analyst just drowning in alert fatigue, trying to manually review 10,000 random blips on the network. But with an internal, open-source AI, it instantly connects the dots. It can look at the noise and say, hey, these 200 alerts are actually one coordinated ransomware campaign, and the initial access came from my compromised VPN account.
It does all that hyper-complex analysis instantly without ever sending a single shred of your highly confidential security logs to some random external cloud vendor. It is also an absolute game changer for insider threat detection. A private AI never sleeps, acting as a tireless threat hunter looking for abnormal behavior on your specific network. Say you have an engineer who normally downloads about 5 gigs of source code a month. No big deal. But then suddenly that same engineer downloads 800 gigabytes at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, right before putting in their resignation. The AI flags it immediately. It totally understands your baseline context. And again, because it's open source and internal, your proprietary employee behavior logs aren't being shipped off to a third party. But let's be fair and hit Section 5, the risks of open source AI and the trade-offs we have to make. We've got to be totally objective here. Open source is awesome, but it is definitely not automatically secure. When an enterprise brings an open model in-house, yeah, they get ultimate privacy, but they also take on 100% of the security burden. It's on them to build the architecture. Step 1, they have to prevent model poisoning by doing rigorous provenance checks, basically a digital background check to make sure nobody snuck malicious training data into the open source code. Step 2 is stopping data leakage with incredibly strict access controls. You definitely don't want the AI happily summarizing the CEO's confidential merger plans for a junior intern. And Step 3, they have to obsessively scan their software containers to block supply chain attacks. It is a really massive nonstop undertaking. Which brings us to our final part, Section 6, the hybrid AI future, synthesizing the ecosystem. So where does this leave us? What's the actual future of AI policy and corporate deployment? Well, the consensus among experts is pointing straight toward a tiered reality. At the government level, we're likely going to see a tiered policy approach. The smaller models, those will stay mostly open, so universities and startups can keep iterating and innovating fast. But those advanced multi-billion parameter frontier models, those are absolutely going to face heavy regulation, mandatory government testing, and strict reporting, especially when they're tied to high-risk applications. And inside the corporate walls, this maps perfectly onto what we're calling the hybrid enterprise. Companies aren't just going to pick one lane. They're going to use public, closed AI models for everyday, low-risk productivity. Drafting emails, summarizing basic meetings, writing marketing copy. Before their absolute crown jewels, their sensitive security ops, their intellectual property, their highly regulated customer data. For that, they will strictly rely on private open source AI to act as their ultimate security control plane. It's all about using the right tool for the actual level of risk. Which leaves us with a pretty heavy question as we wrap up this explainer. As these massive tech shifts keep unfolding and you start seeing all these new AI laws hitting the news in the coming months, I want you to ask yourself, are we actually building guardrails to protect society? Or are we just building an impenetrable fortress for the tech giants who already run the world? Honestly, the answer to that question is going to dictate who owns the future. Thanks for tuning into The Explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.